Hello, and welcome to the Lost in Translation show, where we explore current events to help people understand what's happening in the world today. My name's Simone, and I'm your host. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and people are wondering, what can I do to push back against our government? Can one person make a difference? Citizens in all parts of California are facing different issues that challenge the established values of their communities. Governments and government-funded NGOs are implementing programs and policies that threaten or restrict our constitutional laws and affect our cultural practices and norms. Many boards of supervisors and unelected committees are systemically seeking to implement different globalist agendas at the local levels to implement their world vision. Often a majority of the population is being overrun by the activist minority whose true goal is a transformation of the United States, and it's not to improve the life of the law-abiding tax-paying citizens in their districts. Change is inevitable. But who and how we choose to deal with these changes will shape the future of our state and of our nation. Today's guest, Roseanne DeCastanzo, is going to update us on some issues that her county is facing. She's an Orange County businesswoman with a background in business, finance, and fashion. Both her and her husband are active in trying to reverse the actions of our state government. Over the last few years, their friends and family have fled the state of California due to the high cost of living, housing affordability, massive regulation, and high taxation. Of course, our state is a financial disaster regardless of the massive tax base of the fifth largest economy in the world. California is bankrupt, and it's ripe with corruption. For those listeners who are not familiar with what's going on in our state, Native Californians are leaving in large numbers. They are moving to states that offer affordable housing with less regulation and taxation. But some citizens are fighting back like Roseanne. They don't want to give up, and they want to stand their ground. She is active in the New California State Movement. This reorganized California effort seeks to return the state to a constitutional republic. They have a plan to remove the damage that was caused by the illegal corporate constitutions politicians instituted in 1871. Like the U.S. federal government, our state was captured by a hostile foreign corporation that has destroyed the California Republic. Is there hope for our state, or should we accept there is nothing anyone can do to restore the republic? Here to give us hope that our state's future is bright, welcome, Roseanne.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your offer and your opportunity to share a little bit about what's going on in Orange County as well as California. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And now Roseanne and I know each other through the New California State Movement. We've been traveled to Washington, D.C., and we travel around our state, offering alternatives to what's going on in our state now and a solution. So why don't you just tell us a little more about yourself, Roseanne?
Well, I have a background in real estate, finance, and investing, and I've also done several entrepreneurial activities. So that gives a broad base on what all is involved in starting a business. And so many businesses have left California. So that's been a huge help. And I was a very active mom. I'm now just a recent grandmother. And so just seeing the second generation of children, and you just have such a strong fight to keep the family going, and particularly to enjoy the appreciation that you receive when your grown adult children realized what you did for them. And that's really lovely to have such a strong appreciation when now they're responsible for their own. So that's been wonderful.
Nothing like growing up to make us really appreciate our parents when we go through being mothers, being spouses. We really can respect most of our parents were really good people. Unfortunately, there are some people who didn't have that experience, but I think a majority of us did. So
Right.
I know that you're active down in Orange County and that you recently went to a Board of Supervisors meeting on April 21st, and you've been trying to fight back against some legislation they're trying to implement in your county. Can you tell us a little about that?
Oh, certainly. So I tried way before the 21st. So there is a large crew of us that have been fighting Orange County and attending Board of Supervisors meetings um, since COVID really brought a lot of people to the scene, if you will. And with that, Orange County had just approved two major holidays. So we tried to go there on the 7th, and they literally had other items that were on the agenda. We knew we would be speaking in public comments because there wasn't a place for it that we could see us weave our conversation that we wanted to um, into into the agenda. So we were saving our talk for Islamic um, holidays that had just been passed the prior meeting. So with that, we attended, and no matter how long we sat there, they made the event go on and on and on and drug out things. And literally at 3:45, there were like 10 of us that just had to up and leave because we ran out of day. So we all came back and reassembled, uh, brought more people on the 21st, and thought we were going to have a similar situation, but we did end up finally being able to be heard in public comments. We had several that tried to fit into the agenda under an item that was pretty close to the start, but that was quickly nixed, and they said, no, we can only speak at public comments. So they'll do anything they can to make sure those public comments don't happen at a convenient time and make us sit there and wait. So we
Oh, well,
finally got.
yeah, my suggestion is always to put your complaints in writing and not only deliver them by registered mail prior to the meeting, but if possible, deliver them to the Board of Supervisors and the county attorney and in the public record. And
So
then,
you actually submit, you would submit what you're going to speak on in by registered mail before?
yes, I would
Okay.
verbalize your complaint and see how they respond to you also, because that could also be a paper record, either their failure to respond or what they say. So you're building a case against them and it's going in the public record, even though they're not allowing, when it goes into the city, they're supposed to keep track of every document that they get, right? And it's got a
Uh-huh.
stamp on it when it came in.
Yeah.
You can ask, you've got your return receipt. And then a few months later, you can go into the public record and see if it's in the public record like it legally should be. So you can have
I'm
different ways of approaching it, because in the legal world, talking doesn't matter.
right. No, I think that's excellent idea because I will share that with everyone that participates in these Board of Supervisors. In New California, it's highly encouraged. We have 57 counties that are active and involved, and I will make sure that word is spread.
And of course, we do have several attorneys in our group. So I would suggest you referring. We don't want people, some people might get carried away and
Yeah.
because it's very emotional, especially if they don't let you speak. So I always suggest never just letting anybody just dash off a letter. I'd suggest it to be
Yeah.
reviewed by the people in the group to make sure it reflects what really happened. And then
Got it.
again, to make sure that what you're stating is not a detriment to what we're working for.
Yeah.
So,
Good tip.
and what did you learn from your experience, I guess, would be that you need to keep going back?
Yes, we all went back on the 21st. We stood our ground and just waited our turn and waited for public comments. And then the subject that we were there for was the fact that Orange County supervisors had just passed two legal holidays for the Muslim community to be able to take off as, publicly paid holidays. So we have not had holidays that are granted for a specific group like that. I mean, there are so many different people involved in the county and that live in the county that don't get a specific holiday. If everyone got their own specific holiday, then we would all never work and be able to do anything we wanted. But that's not the case. We're under time restraints and we need to keep going. Sorry, I'm going to turn that down. So with that, we were able to return and we called out, many people had the historical background of how the Muslim culture is literally incompatible with the US Constitution and how so much of the culture violates the Constitution as well. So many of us pointed those features out. We pointed out the violation that these servants were having against their oath of office for not defending the enemy against enemies, foreign and domestic. I particularly did that. I pointed out that Islam in Florida under CAIR, and our group was particularly influenced by CAIR, RAIR, R-A-I-R, which is a side member of CAIR, the Muslim Brotherhood, as terrorist organizations. Now, you and I both know we're never going to see that sort of legislation in California because it operates as a sanctuary state, which right there itself is against the Constitution. But it makes a point that there is some concern by Americans as to what's going to happen to our culture. I had reached out to a prayer warrior friend who's from England, and she's shared with me that there are 40 Sharia courts in England now, and they seriously have control over these outcomes, and they don't go in alignment with the Constitution. And there are many, many, many no-go zones that literally they are in their own world. They operate under their own jurisdiction. Nobody goes into there. The police of England don't enter these areas. They are operating in their own mini countries within another country. And that's not the way America was designed. We're supposed to assimilate and all work for, the American dream, if you will, and follow our Constitution. So I did point that out. I also pointed out that the Muslim culture in its violations against the U.S. Constitution promotes pedophilia. They have child brides. They are not practicing monogamy. They believe in having as many children as they can, and also participate in female genital mutilation, which all these violate our basic guaranteed human rights. So I made sure to point that out.
Well, they also openly practice incest in many instances. And in Pakistan, it's as high as 87% in the rural areas.
Yeah.
Again, whether you think that's right or not, it's against the law in our country. And it also puts a huge strain on our medical system because a high percentage of those children have disabilities and problems that the government will need to pay for that arise out of incest. So these are major societal difference. And I'm not saying that every Muslim is practicing this, but when you're getting people coming directly from these third world countries, it's their practice. And they probably have already promised their daughter to her cousin at birth. So these are major societal things. It's not saying anything against, it's the political structure, the Vatican financed Mohammed. Mohammed's great-great-great-grandfather was at the meeting of Nicaea in Turkey when they dramatically altered the Bible and the structure of the Catholic Church. He was financed by the Romans, so it's an extension. And you mentioned your friend lives in England. Prince Charles joined the Muslim faith years ago. You can go online and Google Prince Charles praying with the mullahs, and he's sitting there reading the Quran in Arabic, and you can see the mullahs kind of laughing at him, actually. He's embarrassing himself. But his mother handed the Church of England in 2014 back to the Vatican, which was against her role as queen and leader of the faith. So what you're seeing is the reason the government's not pushing back because your monarch is part of this faith because his people don't want him. So he's gone somewhere where he was wanted. He's going to use his power to enslave the people of England and I believe that's what's going on. And people are confused by these things. But as I said, go ahead. And Charles did not make a speech on Easter, which has been done traditionally for hundreds of years, but he addressed the Muslim population. So there you go.
Yeah. My girlfriend is actually from England, but she became a legal citizen the legal way. And so many of these people that actually have taken the process seriously, she actually eliminated her English passport, and she is a amazingly strong American citizen. She's a naturalized citizen, and so it's lovely to hear her perspective on both sides, from both cultures. And I've followed a lot of what Brigitte Gabrielle has said, and I'm still processing, especially now that you've introduced more information. But the these religions, I'm not sure I want to. She refers to the Muslim faith, and now maybe you're saying now the Catholic faith as ideologies more so than. I think it's one thing to call it a religion, and at least in the United States, most people would grant it a pass then, saying, "Oh, it's religion, and we have our religious freedoms." But our religious freedoms don't aren't allowed to have us violate the Constitution. So
Also, the word religion
compatible.
is another word that they've used to change the actual meaning. If you understand the word means to reanimate, readdress, recreate.
Okay.
And
Renew. Yeah.
legion is what the demons are in legions. Like the Roman
Oh
military
no.
has 666 men in a legion. So the word religion itself is not even a real word. Well, it is a real word, but it doesn't mean what we think it means. It means a recapturing of the demon legions. And as you
Oh.
can see, that most organized religion is not being led by people that seem to be true believers. But as we discussed a little bit, Muhammad was financed by the Pope.
Mhm.
The Pope is the Vatican system, and the Holy See is the whore of Babylon. And what you were just saying, the whore of Babylon is not a religious leader. He's he's the head of a political structure that separates God from its people. And
Yeah.
the
You never
same
cease to make
thing.
my head explode, that's for sure.
Yeah. So again, they've corrupted our language and our words, especially the English language. We are constantly cursing ourselves. And most of the words that we use are exactly opposite of the words we are intended to use. That could be a whole other constitution.
Yeah, totally.
Even when you see words like constitution, they're conning us, right? So you have to
Oh,
break down
don't do
words.
it again.
You have to look up their origins and you have to see what they're really telling us because the English language itself is a highly controversial language. I know we all speak it, but when you really break down many of the words, if anyone has any interest in kind of looking into this, I'd suggest going to the Black Laws Dictionary. It was published from 1940 to 1948, and it shows you what the real words, because we're in the Admiralty slave system and they've corrupted our language. So the contracts and the agreements that we enter into are exactly opposite of what we think they're saying. So that's kind of a completely opposite conversation. But we have to understand that there is one world religion. It's the oldest religion on earth, and that's the worship of Saturn or Lucifer. And that is the faith of both the Catholic and the Islamic religion.
Once again.
And this is not my opinion. You can go. I've been researching this stuff for 10 years, and most of
Uh-huh.
the information comes from devout Catholics and people who were devout Muslims when they found out what was really going down. So
Wow.
I
Wow.
am not
Crazy. Wow.
closed to any of these groups. If people worship God, I don't think you need to be in a church or you need to label yourself. But the things that we're being taught, even in our own churches, are contrary to God's plan for our lives.
Yeah, we're fighting. We're learning a lot about that. That's for sure. More and more keeps coming out.
And
Great.
as we like to quote, we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. And
Mhm.
that's what we're seeing today. So now I mentioned you were involved in New California State. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
So, New California State, my husband and I were going to head out with some friends, and we asked them if they wanted to go out, and they said no. We're going to go state shopping, and with that, I asked my husband. I said, a lot of people that we know are leaving, whether it be for all the reasons you mentioned in your introduction, over taxation, over regulation, affordability, all that, and they were looking at other states, and I asked my husband, they're leaving, they're state shopping. Do we want to do that, or what's our plan? And my husband had moved a ton when he was young, and he said, nope, we're in our last house, we're staying put. So we've been standing our ground. I'm constantly driving behind out of state plates, which is very infuriating, but nonetheless, we are standing our ground and becoming active. I became active in New California as what I thought was the only hope for staying in California. So New California is an organization that follows the Constitution, Article 4, Section 3 and 4, which is exactly the process that the Virginians followed when they wanted to separate from Virginia. And we're almost done. So it's been quite rewarding and quite frustrating to know that we're not done yet. But I'm very hopeful that we should be done very shortly. I don't think California has much further to go before it's completely off the cliff. So ideally, we are seen as the solution, which is the way I view it, and following the Constitution. This has been tried like over 200 times for somebody proposing to split the state. We just happen to be following the Constitution, and we're the first to do so. So urban LA, urban Bay Area, and urban Sacramento will remain in what will be great California, and everything else will be great state of New California. So
And
I'm excited for that day to happen.
well, I think that a lot of people are confused. They're like, well, how are you going to have different laws and be in the same state? I'm like, well, my county has different rules than Humboldt County, but we still all follow the rules in our county. It's not that dramatic. They try to point out how is it going to be divided, this and that. We
Yeah.
live across the border to Nevada. Does anything change? Not really. Just
No,
they
same
have
rules, same Constitution. We're all part of the compact of the Union of States. And that's what's great to know is that New California has actually kept California's compact intact as a member of the Union of States, because so many don't realize that California has already accepted a proposal by CalExit to secede from the United States. New California is not a secessionist group. We actually remain in California in the Union of States, whereas there's a large group that's proposing that California exit. So, and they are actually, in fact, called CalExit, and that proposal was accepted by Shirley Weber for the.
well, and of course, that's a sedition and a treasonous act. It's
That
not,
act
it's
itself
not
right
the
there was
legal
treason. Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
Because we're instructed to throw off tyranny in the event our government is no longer serving the people. So we're actually doing the constitutional approach as opposed to other people that are doing a treasonous approach where they literally want to leave the Constitution and they want to join other states like Oregon, Washington, Arizona, and Hawaii and join China. That's the true effort.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everyone who's voting for that, understand. Why don't you go Google what's happening in China today and see all the people starving on the streets, the factories exploding everywhere, people crying, thousands of people walking out of factories crying. There's no food, all the restaurants are closed. There's no one in the airports, there's no one on the trains. They've
Oh,
literally.
you're getting these in live updates? You're watching these?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of channel. Yeah. What we're seeing right now, there's China Insider, and there's a really great Chinese woman who does a show called Lei's Real Talk, Leis. And she has relatives and people and grew up in China, understands the system. And she reports, so does China Insider. There's a lot of people living outside China who no longer have any family members back home because they will hurt their family or imprison them if the
Yeah.
relatives come speak. I even wanted someone to speak with me recently and about what was going on because he'd just been to Taiwan, but he was worried about CCP pushing back on his family that was still in Taiwan. If they got captured, he was, because there's the threat of
Yeah.
war
He's
there.
protecting his loved ones.
Yeah, so even people who want to speak out are a fear of their family safety, and they generally don't hurt the person who's doing it because it draws too much attention to that person. They
Right.
hurt somebody around you, your daughter, your child. And as you were explaining, this guy was pushing back against something, so they took his son, right?
Wow. Wow.
So we talked a little bit about the North Virginia model, and because North Virginia was the last state to enter the Union. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and the process they had to go through, and maybe recount our story there from DC when we all visited?
Certainly. So I've had some people say, "Oh, that will never happen." When I talk about New California, and I'll tell this story, and we are actually following the West Virginia model. So Article 4, Section 3 gives the recipe, if you will, on how to proceed. And Article 4 tells the reason why. So the Virginians had left the Union, so they weren't offering a Republican form of government. They had actually left, so they were no longer free from invasion. They were not going to defend their people. They actually wanted slavery, and the people who wanted to be West Virginia did not. And they were not free from domestic violence. They actually, many of the West Virginians were heavily persecuted. So with that, when they realized they couldn't go ask Virginia for permission to separate, they were told by Congress that no, you didn't get permission from the legislature. And they said, we don't care how you get the permission, but you need permission. So with that, they kind of had a huddle, and Francis Pierpont ended up coming up with the situation that they would talk amongst themselves, since they are all actual Virginians, and they would create their own legislature of the Virginia legislature. So they created a mini legislature with governor and legislators, and then they put their documents in front of them and proposed that they be able to have permission to go to the Congress, and they were given permission. They gave themselves permission, really, is the easy way to say that. So we have done all these steps. West Virginia became a state, and New California is soon to be a state. We declared our independence in January on the 15th of 2018. So we are well on our way. We've done all the work. We've had the conventions. We've created the Constitution, which is the original 1849 Constitution that California came into, but we've been able to bring ours up to date since we are actively, working on that document. So that will be presented to Congress, and we're ready to go. Why would Congress want to approve this? Because the American citizens do not want to pay for California's fraud. It's just monstrous. And when you and I were in
Want to
Washington, D.C.
elaborate on that? Why they would be responsible because of the compact we have with the federal government? Like, that kind of is the main thing to me. Why should California and the Congress approve this? Because otherwise, the rest of the nation will have to bail out California.
Yeah.
And that really gets to a lot of people because there's already people have watched the waste, the lack of government, Hollywood sexualizing our children. There is a lot of animosity against what goes on in California. And people are not going to be happy if they've got to bail the fifth largest economy in the world out. Also, a state that's harboring probably 2 million people living openly in sexual or forced labor slavery here in the state. So not only is our movement to create a new state based on the 1849 Constitution, but we're also abolitionists, and we believe that slavery is illegal and it should not be allowed anywhere in the Western world.
Right. When New California will instantly abolish any human slavery. Trafficking, sexualization of children, stealing of children, all that will be eliminated. So I'm very proud to represent the organization and work to get our goal across the finish line and become the 51st state and really bring the Constitution back in a shining light so that we can live under the vision of the founders.
All right. And I guess everyone's going to be asking, is this constitutional?
Oh, yes, we've talked about Article 4, Section 3 and 4, so
It
is entirely constitutional. And then, I guess I was going to mention about when we were in Washington, D.C., we ran into a congressman from Virginia, and he made a crack. I said, you're from Virginia. We are New Californians, and we're following the West Virginia model on how you guys separated. And he said, well, you guys never asked us for permission. And we're like, but you guys left. So right there and then we were able to have him, kind of be quiet because he realized, he actually commented, oh, you're right, we did leave. So,
but then after that, right before the elevator closed, because he was coming out of his office and he was getting into the elevator while we were talking to him, he said, people died over that. And then the elevator doors closed. So
yeah, you like to bring that up. I'm not a big fan of bringing that one up. We're always in a risky business. Look what happened in just fighting for America in the first place. Lives were lost, but They
Well,
were
this is
thinking
the
ahead.
battle between a slave state and a non-slave state. There were a lot of people murdered during that time who opposed the slavery. So
Yeah.
that the West Virginia model, people were imprisoned, people were persecuted for that because the people that were the slave owners, the same group of people that are in California today, right? Because we have one of the largest slave state in the nation due to the illegal immigration and all the unaccounted for people. So anyway, if the state splits apart, this is a big question that a lot of people have. What is going to happen to the debt and what are going to happen to the other state obligations for people, for instance, who work at the different levels of the state government, the forestry and those different divisions? Are they still going to get their pensions?
So everything, all the pensions are guaranteed. The actual legislatures can be held responsible for that, the legislators. But their New California provides a way for California to be able to pay back all these debts um, by providing natural resources of water and energy and items that California just thought would create themselves. And now we're solely dependent on others for getting these supplies. So New California brings those resources in at a much cheaper cost. We'll be able to sell them to California at a very reasonable cost, and California can make a profit on that margin of which they will be able to pay back that debt. And I would imagine that would absolutely be inked in as a line item in the contract of the split. So the debts are all going to be repaid by Californians and will not be imposed on the United States citizens, which is a huge, plus to the rest of the nation.
Well, right. And we're not the only state that's in trouble like this. You've got Illinois, you've got New York, and these states are all going to need to be bailed out too. So many people, they make fun of you. They're like, oh, the people aren't qualified or this and that. And I'm like, well, what's your plan? What's your strategy? You're just
So
gonna,
true.
right? So yeah, we're welcome. Let's bring on all the other strategies everyone else has. Maybe they're going to help us in our movement. Maybe they can create their own movement. But the
Yeah.
reality is, the situation that we have, our state is bankrupt. The government already took CalPERS, which is the teachers' non-pension pension. If any of you
Yeah.
are teachers, you should have been
A
aware.
pension plan that
Yeah, they
Chris
were.
Street says is literally they could charge fraud on the inducement because they presented it as a pension plan and yet it really wasn't. But New California does have the way to solve those issues, and I believe that um, people will be delighted to know that our plan literally is repeatable and it's already being practiced. We have a new Illinois almost ready to complete. We've had several starts at New York or whatever it would be called, but anyhow, I've found a couple of new possible candidates to lead that over the finish line. But New California has been asked to actually help other states that are in trouble to do this same situation, including some of the provinces in the Canada area. So there's already a plan. We're the prototype, we're the proof of concept, and then the other states that are failing will be able to model the same program and come out successfully on the other end.
Well, and Illinois has their own movement because they're suffering from the same issue of non-taxation without representation is basically what's going on because the big cities have all of the illegal voters and they tend to win all the time. But if you've been to San Francisco or Los Angeles lately, and according to Chris Street's recent speech, there's 45 to 50,000 illegal people leaving California every month, and that's been going on for about 12 months now. So
Oh,
if you go to downtown Los Angeles or downtown San Francisco, there's no one there. It's the weirdest thing. I'm a native Californian. I've been to both of those cities probably every month. On Halloween, which San Francisco is an epicenter of satanic activity, there wasn't anybody out on the streets. It was
I
bizarre.
personally stay away from both of those cities and will not attend them until probably New California. But anyhow, yeah, it's so sad to see what has happened, and um, but it is nice to know that American citizens living in California will have a chance to flourish once again.
Well, and if you ever understand the technocrats, the Elon Musk's father founded an organization that planned on making all the major cities into their fiefdoms. And so they're getting everybody to leave the cities. They're replacing them with all people from third world countries, and that will be their slave operation. You've heard of the cities that all the tech guys want to build, where they have the special tax and incentives and everything, and all the jobs will be in the city centers. And unless we're participating, we won't be allowed into the economic pool. So the plan from California was put in place by Elon Musk's father, and we're watching it unfold because they believe that they are the rulers of this space, just like the mining magnates and the oil magnates, technocracy. They believe they're the next people who will lead our nation. So California, what's going on here, they're going to do it everywhere else that they haven't done it already. And everybody will end up where California is, bankrupt and without representation.
Well,
So
I am hoping that will not happen. And Paul is continually commenting that he's getting a lot of calls from people who did leave that want to come back. So
that's great.
ideally, everyone will have had their wake-up call, have their moment of truth, and be ready to stand their ground and know that we're following the Constitution and it will be practiced everywhere. We just heard President Trump make a comment about Jeffries making a seditious comment. So we're getting more constitutional language back in public square, and that will be nice to see.
Excellent. All right. Well, Roseanne, thank you for sharing your experience, action plans, and participating in local government meetings to protect our rights. As always on my show, please do your own research and come to your own conclusions. As always, these presentations are made in hopes that never again will the truth be lost in translation. Thank you for listening today. This is Roseanne and Simone signing off for the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.